Hi, everyone. Welcome to our brand new podcast. This is the first episode, and I guess for now, I'm just going to call it the Oceanlovers podcast because that's really the only thing I could think of, and that's what the account's under. So
I like
it's
it.
either going to be, yeah. I'm kind of thinking, okay, maybe we'll just stick with it unless we really think of something else. But
I know. I was
my
like,
name
I
is,
was thinking we could toss around ideas and stuff because
yeah,
I
we
don't
could do
know.
something on the Instagram or something like
Yes,
that.
definitely. But I
Yeah.
do like Oceanlovers. It
Yeah.
encompasses it all.
Yeah, I feel like people finding it's pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's simplified. I like it.
Yeah. So my name is Kirstie, if you guys don't already know. But I created this podcast because I want to be able to talk about marine life and our ocean and connect with others that are thinking about becoming a marine biologist or in that field in general, or people that just simply love learning or hearing about this type of topics. And I have Erica Page here.
Hello.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
I'm so excited that we're doing this.
I know. Well, it's funny because it is a little scary, I guess, starting out a podcast because, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of out there. Like, some people don't even know what podcasts are yet. And so it's funny to just sit and record ourselves talking, but podcasts are like the next totally big thing. So it's like, why not jump on? It's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always loved radio and stuff like that. So I figured it's just a cool way to be able to talk to a lot more people than just one-on-one.
Right. I like it too because, I mean, obviously YouTube is like a really big thing, but I like this because then you can just sit here and no matter where you are, you can just sit down and you can just start talking. And there's like no pressure to, oh, I have to look a certain way in front of the camera to like, because when I did YouTube, well, I attempted to do YouTube. I mean, I still have my channel up, but it's like, you really do have to plan out. Okay. You have to make sure you look decent. You have to make sure that you're sitting there and you're trying to film something and the whole thing.
And the lighting is good and all that.
Exactly. And with this way, I like it because there's times where I notice that I'll talk to like my husband or just friends, and I notice like I can just go and talk about stuff. And I never once would have considered a podcast probably until you asked me like a couple months ago.
I know.
And it never crossed my mind.
Oh my gosh. You're so a natural for it. Like, I feel like you were meant to do a podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I love hearing you talk.
Oh, yeah. It's just not something I thought about until you brought it up. And then it was like, okay, well, I listened to the Whale Nerds podcast and you mentioned that you listened to them too. And theirs is really cool. I love the way they do it to where they're constantly talking. And, they're all really good friends. So it comes natural. Like they don't have to like script it or, So that was like, okay, if I were to start one, that's exactly how I would want to do it.
Yeah, the same style.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so excited.
Yes, me too. And oh my gosh, I listen to so many different podcasts. Like, it's how I spend all my free time because I have these long commutes, and then just during my downtime, it just feels like I'm constantly hanging out with like my best friends. And it sounds so silly, but if I could be that for somebody, that would be amazing. And I would love that so much if people just enjoyed listening to us chat.
To it.
Yeah.
And so where they don't have to feel scared to be like, oh, if I contact this person, they're never gonna, where you kind of reach out to people that there's a good chance they're not going to respond to you, or you think that you can't reach out to those people. Like you think it's impossible, but what's really cool is like, we're normal people.
Totally.
We have social media to where people can reach out to us if they really want to know more about the podcast or about us individually and more about the field. So I find that really cool too, to where the community it can be pretty big, but at the same time, I feel like people that do podcasts, they're kind of more open and more connected to people that are actually listening to it.
Yeah, I think they want to be contacted by people that listen, I think that's so rewarding. But we should tell how we even met.
Yes. Okay, do you want to tell it?
Well, sure. I mean, I was working in Monterey Bay on Sanctuary Cruises whale watch company, and I got a message from Kirstie out of the blue, I think, right?
Yeah.
Just, I guess you must have found my page. I'm not really sure.
Did. I don't even know how.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because hashtag Monterey or something.
Yeah. I think I was just looking on Instagram of like people in that area because I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly following people that are going whale watching or that live in Monterey or people that work on the whale watching boats like Slater
Mm-hmm.
and Eric and Caitlin and so many more people out there. And I think I just randomly came across her page and I was like, oh, her stuff looks pretty cool. Let me contact her.
Yeah, and
I'm one of those people to where like I don't really hold back when contacting people through Instagram, and if they don't respond, oh well.
mm-hmm.
But it was really nice. I was like, I remember telling my husband, well, I think at that time he was my fiance,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember telling him like, oh my gosh, she messaged me back. Oh my gosh, I'm talking to a marine biologist. I was so excited. You have no idea.
That is
It
so
was
funny because yeah, I feel the same way about other people. For example, Kristen Campbell and Chelsea Mayer work at Newport Landing. Well, Newport Landing, Davies Locker, blah blah blah. Newport Coastal Adventures. It's a whole whole bunch of companies kind of under one roof sort of deal. But anyway, so I've been following them on Instagram for years. I'm obsessed with their photography. They and Delaney and Adam and just so many incredible whale photographers that when I came down here and started working at Newport Landing and met all of these people that I'd been following on Instagram for so long, I fangirled. It was embarrassing. Like I think I turned red because I was like, these are my like girl crushes, you know, like through Instagram. And so I know what you mean. And it's hilarious to hear that you kind of thought that way because I totally feel that way about other people. So it's so interesting. But yeah, and then of course I was like, oh my gosh, yes, you're like my age, you're like in the area, you're interested in whales, like we would totally be friends. So I was like, of course, like come out. So yeah, I got you on a whale watch. I don't remember how long in advance we'd been communicating. Do you know?
I don't, I want to say maybe a month or two,
Oh,
probably
okay.
at the most.
Yeah.
I think I came out pretty quickly. I think it just so happens that Chase Decker was planning those photography workshops, and I was like, that's perfect. I want to go on there. So I think that's kind of how like the timing was just perfect.
Yes. Do you remember what we ended up seeing that day?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think my first trip that I did the photography workshop, I want to say, oh my gosh, I want to say we saw orcas that day out by the canyon.
Gosh.
I'm pretty sure. If it wasn't the first time, then it was definitely the second time.
Oh, that was so lucky.
Yeah.
What month was that in?
What?
June? Did you say it was in June?
April.
Oh, okay. That's like the peak time.
Yeah. And I want to say it was in April. I think we saw when we went out, I believe that there was a couple humpbacks in the harbor. And then we were, because we left pretty early in the morning, and then we left out and, oh gosh, I think we were out there for a while because I think there was quite a few humpbacks breaching because I remember I thought a really cool photo. Yeah, it was, and it was pretty, I wouldn't say it was foggy, but it was overcast because it was just so early in the morning.
It usually is.
So we were like the only ones out there, I remember. Like there wasn't any boats out yet. So that was another cool thing about being out there so early with that photography workshop, is that we didn't have to worry about any of the other whale watch boats like kind of crowding the area, so to speak.
Sounds so dreamy.
So that was really nice, and the water was really calm that day. And then I want to say after like 2 hours or so, I think we drove out by the canyon area. And I think on the way out there, I believe we saw some Rizzos, which that was my first time seeing Rizzos.
I love them so much.
Amazing. I know, they're so pretty. I love them. I haven't seen Casper yet, which I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Oh, yes. I got to see Casper
Did you?
like the last couple of months that I lived up there. I saw Casper twice on 2 different occasions.
Oh my gosh.
Was so incredible. It's honestly one of the coolest things I think I've seen out there on a boat because it's so rare, and he's just gorgeous.
Oh my gosh. And for those that don't know, it's he's basically an albino Rizzo dolphin, right?
Yeah, so they don't know if it's I guess it's really hard to tell if it's actually albino,
yeah.
because you have to do genetic testing to know. So they say it's leucistic, I think it's pronounced,
Oh yeah,
right?
right.
Um,
I think I heard Eric talking about that.
yeah, and it's just like a loss of pigmentation.
Mhm.
So he's like pure ghostly white. He's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I
Especially,
can't
I
wait
was
to
so
see him.
lucky. I got a photo of him surfacing right next to a normal
Ah.
colored
Oh,
Rizzo, and so
you could
just the
definitely
contrast
tell.
was
Yeah.
so cool.
Oh, that is so cool. I know. I on the Whale Nerds podcast, Eric and Caitlin, they're constantly like going back and forth, and he's like, "Oh, I saw him twice this week."
Oh my gosh,
So
lucky,
I'm
I
like, "Oh,
know.
I can't wait to see
And
him."
I'm pretty sure Eric and Caitlin, well, Caitlin's been working down in Hawaii. I'm pretty sure right
Yes,
now Eric is either visiting her or he just got. Oh, their trip looked so amazing. And it looked
I
like
know.
Kate from Blue Ocean. She's the owner and captain at Blue Ocean, co-owner and captain. Yeah, she's like a total badass babe. I'm obsessed with her. I
Oh my
love her.
gosh.
I
Yeah,
was
I've
so
been seeing their
lucky.
posts nonstop.
Yes, I got to work with her a few times on Blue Ocean when I was up in
Oh.
Monterey. I just like filled in as a naturalist, and
Mhm.
she is she's awesome. And I
Oh.
love her boat. I love the way that they run their company, and oh my
Mhm.
gosh, yeah, she's just the best. And so it looks like she went down there too.
Oh,
Um
what's her name?
Kate Cummins.
Oh, that sounds so familiar to
She's
me.
a yeah, she's a captain for, and she co-owns Blue Ocean Whale Watch out
Okay.
of Moss Landing. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's why it sounds familiar because I'm pretty sure I've heard it on the Whale Nerds.
oh yeah, probably.
I
Yeah.
think they've
Yeah.
talked
She's
about
so
it.
cool. And she's like
Yeah.
young and just she's like it's so funny. I don't even know if I've ever like told her this. I doubt it, but she's like I look up to her. Like I
Aw.
so badly want my captain's license. It's been a
Oh
goal of mine
wow.
for years. And since I moved down to working in Newport Beach, I've been trying to get more serious about it, and I've been
Yeah.
trying to count up my boat time hours for the past like 5 years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I don't know if we've been talking about this yet.
No, you've never mentioned that. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's something that I really want to do. And so not even counting all of the different research projects that I've done, and not including my time on a whale watch in New Zealand either. I counted up my hours for the last like 3 years, and I'm
Yeah.
already at like 1,800 hours of
Holy
sea
crap.
time,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
really exciting. But I don't know, it's pretty complicated. So it's like
Yeah.
um you have to take a log of like all your hours, and you have to have a certain amount, like I want to say 700 and something days at sea
Oh
to get
wow.
your 100-ton captain's license, I believe.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And that's a lot. And
Yeah.
sometimes they say that like 4 hours equals a day at sea. Some people say 8 hours is a day at sea. So I'm
Oh.
not really sure exactly how to count up my boat hours to see how many days at sea I have.
Okay.
But there's I want to say maybe Coast Guard station or something I can go to in Newport
Mhm.
and actually talk with the people who would be looking at my
Yeah.
application, and then they could
Yeah.
tell me like exactly how I should count my boat time. But
That's really
I'm
cool.
it is something that I'm really excited about, and I
Yeah.
want to potentially take my course this year. So in
Oh
2020 I want to like
wow.
take my course. That definitely does not mean I'm going to be an active captain
Right. Yeah.
or boat
But
driver,
that's one
because
step closer. I mean, why not?
definitely. But yeah, it's something that I really want to do. I think it would be
That's
so
awesome.
cool. And I already know that I have my dream career. Like I'm
Huh.
so fortunate, so
Yeah.
so fortunate. It doesn't get past me how incredible my job is and how much I love
Mhm.
it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like this is adding on another aspect of what I could do with my career.
Yeah.
Like it just opens a lot more doors because
It,
I already
yeah.
know I want to be at sea. I want to be on a boat. I love
Yeah.
it. I love the ocean. Duh.
Well, and who knows? Maybe
Ocean
someday
lovers.
when you have more experience and you get all that done, you could just own your own boat.
Oh,
And
totally.
I
Totally.
mean, you
That's
could
like a
do that
dream.
and hire naturalists and photographers. And I mean, there's so much you can do with that. I mean, that's like the top. I mean, you can
Absolutely.
connect with so many different people. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if Kate would ever listen, maybe someday if we got big enough, but no,
Oh,
I do love her and I think she's amazing.
yeah.
So that'd be
Oh,
cool.
That would be cool. So I think we should tell people a little bit about, I mean, my background's probably not honestly as interesting as yours.
No, it is
So
though. It is. And I want to hear everything, even if it's not marine biology related, just like
mhm,
explain why you do love the ocean so much and like
okay.
your upbringing or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I just grew up in the Bay Area in California. That's where I was born. And then when I was all I remember is one thing I know is like I don't have like one of those stories like a lot of people do about, oh, I grew up next to the ocean and I
Hmm.
used to go out with my family every single day and, out to the beach. I don't really have that story, but I do remember going to like Santa Cruz a lot. And I always loved it. We used to go to like the park area that the rides and everything.
I
So I
love the
remember
Santa Cruz
going out
Boardwalk.
there and I always had a blast. And I remember the moments with my dad and my sister and my mom. And it was always so much fun. And then just growing up, I think I just, in the background, it was always something I liked, but it wasn't something I always thought about, to be completely honest.
Hmm.
And then, I got older. We moved here. We moved out of the Bay Area near the Sacramento, Modesto area. And um, so that's where I am currently. And I think I moved here when I was about seven or probably 8 or 9. And then I just grew up here. And it's, for those of you that don't know, it's about 2.5 hours away from Monterey Bay. So again, not something that I had on my mind 24/7 was, oh, I'm going to be a marine biologist. That was
Hmm.
not something that was always on my mind every day. Like I know a lot of people growing up by the ocean, you're more prone to want to do that thing, that go in that field. And honestly, oddly enough, it wasn't until I took it was my freshman year and it was a math class. I still cannot tell you why. We had to pick some type of project and I picked the subject of marine biology. I'm sure it has something to do with math, but I cannot even tell you what.
Oh, there is
All I
so
remember,
much math in actual marine biology.
yeah.
It was probably something to do with
So
like mapping or,
probably,
yeah.
or yeah, it had something to do with math, but I remember I picked marine biology. I honestly don't even know how, but I did. So looking back, I'm like, obviously I loved it, or that's not something I would have picked right off the bat. Um, so I did that, and throughout high school, it was just, again, something that was in the back of my mind, but not something I was really thinking about. And then oh, I think it was my senior year. I kind of changed courses. I actually went into physical therapy for a while. I
Mm.
went to a trade school, which I'm not really going to get too much into because honestly, it was not a good choice for me to go into. It didn't benefit me much. And I kind of regret not just going to like the community college right away.
Mm.
I was
Hmm.
trying to find that easy way out. And physical therapy back then was a big thing. There was supposedly a lot of job opportunities, but long story short, it didn't really work out, and I actually became well, it was quite a few years later. I actually became a preschool teacher, um, and that's what I am currently. And it probably wasn't until oh gosh, it probably wasn't until 5 no it wasn't until about 2 years ago to where I was sitting down with, my boyfriend at the time. And he just straight up was like, you know what you want to do.
Mm.
And, you love marine biology. You need to go back to school if this is something you want to do. And I was so scared. I was talking about going back to school for a while. And he's like, you just need to do it. So I did. I
Mm.
started my first semester, and it's weird because I was so scared just to get back into school because in high school I struggled. I
Hmm.
was one of those people where I would try, but I would struggle. Um, and I thought going into college, that was going to be like my mindset that I was just going to fail.
Oh.
And so I started my community college, and I pretty much started acing all my classes.
Oh.
My mindset was completely different because I knew what I wanted the outcome to be. I was
Hmm.
very passionate that I'm going into marine biology, and your mindset just completely changes. And that's what I tell everyone. If you really want to go for it, you won't fail. Like you'll make sure that you are going to do everything you can to try to be the best in what you want to be. So that's what happened to me. and I started going back to school, and it's tough because I'm still 2.5 hours away from where I want to be, where I want to live. But I'm constantly going to Monterey Bay, like all
Mm-hmm.
the time. I'm constantly there, but it's still a struggle. And I think another reason why I wanted to start this podcast is because I want to feel connected to making a difference in marine biology and in just in that field in general. And even though I'm just still doing my, like right now, I'm still just trying to get my general ed done so I can transfer, and that way we can move to Monterey. Um, I want people to know that it's not impossible. And my husband has seen me struggle because I'm like, okay, I feel like I can't start a YouTube channel. I feel like I can't start a blog. I feel like I can't start a podcast because I don't live at, near the ocean. And I'm sure in most cases for people, it's a lot. Obviously, it's easier for people to talk about it all the time when they're there constantly. But for me, it's not that case. But I'm just so eager to talk about it and to
Mm-hmm.
tell people, well, if you truly want that, then nothing should stop you. And that is the main reason why I started this podcast. And even my husband was like, I'm so excited for you. He's like, this is really big for you. And I told him, I go, I'm nervous because this is a big deal. This is like the first thing I've done in a very long time that has to do with my marine biology journey. And I go, I'm nervous, but I'm excited because it's my first time that I actually feel like this could be something, or even if it doesn't turn into a big thing, I mean, it's still going to help me. I mean, I'm also going to learn as we go when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about our topics, and
Me too.
it's
I want
going
that to
to
be a big part of it. I would love to like use it as a learning tool for us as well.
exactly. And I feel like that's like overall what bad thing could come out of it. I mean, we're going to be
Exactly.
sitting here just chatting with people like they're right here with us, and we're going to be educating people and just having fun with it. And I'm like, there's nothing really bad that can come from this. So why not just do it? And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just right now, I'm a preschool teacher taking nighttime classes, trying to get back into school again because I did take a semester off because I got married and our honeymoon, and it was just going to take so much time. I didn't want to just sign up for a bunch of classes and then fail them because I knew I wouldn't have the time for it. So that's kind of my mindset right now is I'm just kind of stopping everything that I was doing on the side that was, in a sense, distracting me from what my main goal is, and that's continuing school and going into marine biology and hopefully continuing this podcast.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so
And
it's been a journey, that's
yeah,
for sure.
even your side projects that you were working on though, like your art, which you're
Yeah.
amazingly talented at, is marine biology themed. So like there's an underlying theme there of
Mm-hmm.
like you know what you're passionate about, and I love
Right.
that.
Yeah. So tell us about you because we talked about things, especially when I met you, but I don't think I remember you talked a little bit about your schooling and whatnot, but we
Mm-hmm.
never like went into full detail about like how you started it. So I'm really, really, really curious to hear like your full story. I'm very, very curious.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it has been quite a journey, I have to
Hmm.
say. It's a journey that's been about a decade in the making since I
Yeah.
graduated high school.
Hmm.
Um, but even before I graduated high school, like you said, you grew up inland and I grew up majorly inland as well.
Hmm.
So we definitely have that in common where we didn't grow up next to the ocean. I grew up
Right.
in North Dakota, is where I spent the majority of my life prior to 18. So I
Hmm.
went to middle school and high school there, and it's like a at least 2.5 day drive
Oh,
from the
wow. Yeah.
nearest ocean. There's a part in North Dakota that's considered the geographical center of North America, so it's like the farthest you can
Oh,
get from an
wow.
ocean.
So
And
I really shouldn't be complaining that much because I'm
no,
only 2.5 hours away.
no, but you know what, it doesn't matter. it it's it's the same, like
Right.
even people who live 2 hours inland, most of
Hmm.
them I would say have never been on a whale watch, because two
Oh,
hours
wow.
2 days, like it's enough of
That's
an
true.
inconvenience to never go. It's
Yeah,
so
that's true.
common. But yeah, so we both grew up far from the ocean, and
Hmm.
I don't know exactly where the spark came, but I
Hmm.
knew by sixth grade that I did want to do marine biology.
Yeah.
I think it's because I did spend my my childhood until I was about 7 in New Hampshire, and there are beaches there. There's one or two beaches there. It's such a short coastline. But so I know I would go to the beach as a kid, and I just remember maybe being like 10 years old and getting a little orca toy. And that just like sparked something in me where I was like, oh my gosh, I love this thing more than anything I've ever seen in my life. It's so silly. But yeah, so then in 6th grade, I knew I was like, I'm going to be a marine biologist, whatever that meant to 12-year-old me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to do something with whales or dolphins. Like that was my main love. Just like, you know, every little kid growing up wants to, work at SeaWorld, which I'm sorry, I'm not a
that's actually something I totally forgot that I even mentioned, that was something that was on my mind when I was younger. I wanted to be a dolphin trainer.
Yeah, I mean, every little girl growing up does.
Yep.
But of course, once I realized like what captivity is, I was immediately like, no way. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've thought about that being an episode at one point.
Yeah, totally. It's something that really strikes a passion in me. So it would have to be handled delicately, I guess. Just
I was thinking the same thing because it's very controversial and you don't want to.
And I do have strong opinions, but anyways. So anyway, so I knew I loved orcas and all that stuff, but so I figured it out about probably 18 that I was gonna move to the coast to study marine biology.
Okay.
And it was a big move. My dad lives out in New Hampshire. So I picked a college about an hour and a half away from where my dad lived in Maine. And the reason that I chose that university, there's a few reasons. One, because it had both majors that I was super interested in, which was animal behavior and marine biology.
Okay.
So I did study a lot of animal behavior in my undergrad, and I'm super interested in especially whale behavior. It's so fascinating to me.
Oh yeah.
But so I picked my university for those programs that they offered, but also because they had a marine mammal rehabilitation center on campus.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if there was like stranded seals and stuff like that, then they would rehabilitate them along with sea turtles. So it was really cool having that on campus. And it was this like little marine biology center. So I had a lot of my classes there. So that was really cool. So that's where I went to college, and it was this beautiful campus right on the ocean. And me as an ignorant 18-year-old who had no idea what I was doing with, finances, student loans, things like that, I totally dug myself into a massive hole by picking this college because I really, really, really was naive. I had no idea what, money was. I had no idea like what this student loan was going to do to me in the future. Like people tried to clue me in a little bit, but I didn't understand the full impact. And so I went to this private university in Maine. I ended up going for 3 years. I did 1 year at a community college before I moved out to Maine. But I am in a pile of student loan debt. It's absurd, and I am paying for it majorly. But at the same time, I try to remember that I did end up getting my degree in something that I am so passionate about, and I do use my degree for my career, So it's I try not to think of it as a waste, but I do wish that I was a lot more sensible about where I went, how I did it, the amount of time I did it in. I would have done it like you, honestly. I would have taken my time and taken off a semester if I needed, that's such a smart way to do it. And going to community college for your generals, like that is so beneficial. And I wish I would have figured that out when I was there, because I do have major loans. But anyway, that's another.
But honestly, it's so weird that you say that, because on my end, it's like, okay, I think sometimes I catch myself almost getting embarrassed because I'm like, okay, I'm 28 years old and I'm still like in the starting point. It's like, I know I have so much more to learn, and I have many years of school ahead of me. So part of me is like, I'm not getting any younger. And that's another reason, I guess I could say, that I started the podcast, because I know I need to get more serious into it. But then, I see other people, they're like younger than me and they're like, oh, I've already graduated. And I'm like
Mhm.
such a late bloomer into the field. And it's funny because I do regret like not starting my general ed years and years ago. But at the same time, when I do think about that, I think, well, at the same time, I didn't even know, let's say, 8 years ago that this is exactly what I wanted
Mhm.
to do. I mean,
Mhm.
not as passionate as I am now.
Yeah,
So in a way, it's like, yes, I could have started my general ed, but who knows how much I would have had to change it, or if I had to go
yeah,
back and do more classes, because I still didn't know.
exactly. And I feel that there's so much pressure put on young people, 18-year-olds, to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And that is just too much pressure to decide
Yeah.
when you're that young. So I think it's so I love hearing when people go back to school at a later age
Mhm.
because like there is no time limit. Everybody's on a different schedule and that's you know that's what makes life beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody do it at their own pace. So I think
Yeah,
I
that's
commend
true.
you highly for going back to school. If I had to go back to school right now, oh my gosh, no, I don't. I have nightmares like all the time that I'm still
Yeah.
in school and I have
Oh.
assignments due that I didn't do. Oh, it's a recurring nightmare. So I'm so
Oh.
I commend you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I guess going off of like after college. So once I
Mhm.
got my degree, I actually stayed in Maine for a year after my graduating in 2014. And I
Oh
worked,
wow.
first of all, at an animal shelter, which was amazing.
Oh,
I loved it. It was so
I don't know
cool.
how you could do that.
It's really
I
hard. It is really hard, but it is really, really rewarding. And
oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a cool field. But
It's a good
anyway,
learning experience, I guess, huh?
yeah, absolutely. So I did that for almost a year. And while I was doing that, I was like shooting out my resume to different things. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something with
Mhm.
whales. It's just, I am obsessed with whales. I always have been. It's just my thing. And
Yeah.
so I was doing all this research online and I found this mailing list called Marmam. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I haven't checked it out, but I've heard of it because Eric
Yeah.
has talked about it like
Oh,
tons of times on their podcast.
yeah, well, it's so handy. It stands for Marine Mammal like newsletter sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they post it. I actually haven't gotten an email in a long time, so I need to look into that. But at the
Okay.
time I was getting many, many emails every
Hmm.
single day. And all it is just different scientific articles that have been published in a
Oh,
journal
okay.
or different discoveries or different job openings, different
Hmm.
internship positions, all this stuff all in the field of marine mammals, which is like totally up my alley. So I found a position, well, I found a couple positions that I applied for. I actually had an interview with this organization doing research in Turkey,
Oh wow.
in the Mediterranean. So I had actually been accepted for that internship program where I was going to go and do research in Turkey.
Oh
But
my
I had,
gosh.
but I also had an interview for a position in British Columbia, studying whales and different species of whales there actually.
Wow.
So I was so lucky. I kind of had this choice, and
Hmm.
I would have loved more than anything to go to Turkey. But the reason I didn't is because it was more of sending out a boat and trying to discover if there were whales and dolphins in their area. So it was more of like
Oh,
just
okay.
trying to find different whales and dolphin species, where the
Right.
internship in Canada was guaranteed whales every day. It was insane. So anyway, that's what I ended up going with.
Oh wow. Oh yeah.
Um and man, I feel like I could go on about this for like days. I It was so cool and just a crazy experience. I did
Hmm.
whale research up in northern British Columbia on this totally deserted island except for like
That is
our whale
so amazing.
research hut. And I spent 3 months out there and I lived in a tent the whole time.
Oh
And
my gosh.
we like chopped our own wood and would spend weeks at a time out on this out camp with no running water, only solar panels that would give us like enough power for like a radio. And
Yeah.
it was such a
That's
crazy experience, but the
crazy.
whale, like, experience that I gained and just knowledge
Yeah.
that I gained. And like, oh my gosh, it was life-changing. And I actually
Yeah.
wrote a blog about my experience. I don't know. I think it's still floating around the internet. If anybody's interested, it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
called Wagging Tails to Whale Tails, and
Oh.
Wagging Tails is spelled Tails, and then Whale Tails is spelled Tales.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, if anybody's curious, I have a blog
Oh.
on there about that whole experience, and it was
That is
pretty
so
wild.
cool. Well, if
So,
I can get this, I'm gonna try to find a way to get the recording on YouTube.
oh
That
yeah,
way, when I post it, I can give everybody that option because I know not everybody's gonna want to download the Anchor app, and we're not
mm,
on the Apple Podcast yet. But I did get notifications that I believe we're on Spotify, some type of Google Podcast, and some
okay,
other things that I honestly have never heard of.
okay. Hey, that's
But I'll
cool.
try to, if I can get this on YouTube, which I'm sure I'll be able to. We can put like all the links to everything on there, so
Okay,
we'll get that too, and we'll put it in the description so people
cool.
can go check that out and see your experience because that's awesome.
Yeah.
And in another episode, I definitely want to hear about that.
Yes, I could do, honestly, every different position I've held, I could do an entire podcast
Oh
on.
my gosh.
Oh, so yeah, I could talk for days. But anyway, so yeah, so I did that internship. It was amazing. I met some of my close friends that I still have today. My friends Fiona and Kara, we met there doing research, and Sam, and I don't know, a couple other people that were just incredible. But
Yeah.
so after I had finished my internship, I ended up actually moving back to North Dakota for a year because I didn't have any like marine biology jobs lined up. I didn't
Mhm.
really know what to do next. So I ended up going to visit my best friend Marissa, who lives in Fargo, North Dakota. And
Okay.
within a day of me visiting her, I had a job and an apartment lined up. So like
Oh
everything
my
just
gosh.
went fast forward. So I ended up moving to North Dakota for a year, which was really great too, because
Yeah.
even it was just kind of me getting back on my feet and figuring out what my next move was going to be, trying to see if I could ever get a job in
Right.
marine biology. So I spent that whole year like applying to different things.
Just kind of taking a breather, I would assume.
Yeah, it was because it was my first time like being done with college as well, like
Mhm.
not really having a plan. So I actually
Wow.
still haven't been back to Maine since I graduated college. But anyway, so I lived in North Dakota, and while I was there, I was still in touch with my friend Fiona, who I had done the research with up in British Columbia. And
Yeah.
she was actually she's British, but she works down in New Zealand, and she has now for like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, 7 years, I don't know. But she was working on a dolphin swimming boat. So they would take people out
Oh my
in New
gosh.
Zealand to go swim with wild dolphins, dusky dolphins. And so I applied to work at her job, and I had been in touch with them for a long time. And this again could be a whole other podcast episode.
Mhm.
It was hard because in order to get the job, I had
Yeah.
to be there for an in-person interview. So it was a big
Oh.
commitment. I had to get rid of everything I owned, pack my
Oh
bags,
my
and move to
gosh.
New Zealand in the hopes of getting a job. So I did. So I spent my whole year in Fargo saving up to move to New Zealand. So I moved down there, and well, okay, so like 2 days before I actually flew down,
Mhm.
I got an email from the dolphin swim boat. I don't even really want to say what it's called because I had a pretty traumatic experience, but they told
Oh.
me that they had hired somebody for the job position already.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
my
so it was the most
gosh.
devastated I've been, and I was so beside myself. I didn't even know if I should still go. I didn't know what to do.
Oh.
I had spent a semester in my undergrad studying abroad in Australia, and when I was
Mhm.
flying to New Zealand, I had a layover in Australia, so I just considered staying in Australia, like not
Oh
even going to New
wow.
Zealand. But anyway, I decided to do it, so I just
Mhm.
went. And not getting the job on the dolphin boat
Yeah.
was the best thing that ever happened to me,
Oh wow.
truly, because I ended up I didn't even know this, that in the same town that the dolphin boat was on, there was a whale watch company. And for some reason, even though I'm obsessed with whales, I had never even thought about working on a whale watch. It
That's so
never
funny.
crossed my mind. And maybe it's
Yeah.
because I hadn't gone whale watching since I was like, I don't know, 6 maybe.
Oh, wow.
And so I applied, never, ever, ever thinking I would get the job, but I did. And it blew my mind. And so
Oh my
I
gosh.
landed my first whale watching job, and I could tell, um, maybe in a later podcast, like why my qualifications did get me the job, and like what other people could do to potentially land a whale watching job, because some of the things aren't what you would expect. Like you have to be really good at public speaking. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Because that is what the job is. But
Right.
anyway, so yeah, I got my first absolute dream job. I loved it. I loved the company I worked for, Whale Watch Kaikoura. Shout out, because I love them. But what happened when I was there was a massive earthquake. The second worst earthquake in New Zealand history. It hit Kaikoura where I was working, and it totally devastated everything. And the seabed rose like 9 feet during the earthquake. So the next day, our whale watching boats were literally sitting on the ocean floor, like on the rocks. So we were out of business for a while, and the whale watch company ended up keeping us on as staff, but they paid us to do community service to pick up the town and get everything back up and running, because if the town wasn't working, the whale watch, there would never be tourism and whatever. So I ended up doing a lot of just community service type volunteer jobs and getting paid by the whale watch. But after doing that for about 4 months, I was on a temporary work visa, so I didn't have, forever to do that. So I ended up shooting out my resume again to different, I honestly think I just Googled like best whale watch in US and applied. And I don't know, if it's the best whale watch in the US. I have no idea. I don't even know what I Googled, but ended up just applying. And I think it was the only one that I had applied to. I can't remember. No, okay, so I think I had applied to a job on San Juan Island.
I want to go there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is.
Bucket list.
Oh, you have to. We should go together. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm down.
Yes, let's do that. We should really plan a trip, actually. I think Slater does trips out there, like photography trips and stuff.
Yeah.
So let's hit him up and figure that out. But anyway, so I was gonna either work there, but I ended up getting a job on a different whale watching company in Washington, and so I moved to Washington from New Zealand.
And you know what? I think that's where, when we met, I remember you mentioning Washington.
Yeah. So I ended up working there for a year, and so the reason that I decided to move out of there was just because it was the off season. There was not a lot of business in like December and the winter time, and I had a really hard time finding other work there, because I lived in a really small town. Port Angeles, Washington is where I lived, and so I just couldn't really find work over the winter. So I ended up moving down to Monterey and getting a job on Sanctuary Cruises. I just, luck of the draw, ran into Mike in the parking lot.
Oh my God.
And handed him my resume, and ended up getting a job that way.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I did that for another year, and I have to say Monterey is is just the best whale watching.
It's like all in one.
It is like
you get good weather, you get pretty much anytime you go out there. I've never not once seen anything when I've been whale watching in Monterey. It's always something. There are times where it's like, okay, you might only see humpbacks for a certain time of the year, and they might not be very active, because that did happen to me once, to where I went. It was a couple years ago. I actually took my good friend, and I was so excited to take her. And then this was before I ever even went through Moss Landing to go whale watching.
Yeah.
Before, I would always do it through Monterey, and we actually drove, or in the boat, all the way out to Moss Landing, which I think that takes an hour,
like
at
least
2 hours.
Like at least probably an hour drive, I would say.
Yeah, I remember it was a really long time just to get to Moss Landing, and there was a couple humpbacks. I think there was like 2 or 3. They weren't very active, and they're like, "All right, we gotta head back," and I was like,
I
I was so
know.
sad. So
See,
I think ever since that trip, I think that's really how I came about looking into Moss Landing. And sure
yes.
enough, I mean, yeah, you do see it. Like if you go through Monterey, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that there's a lot of times when you go out through Moss Landing, they're just right there, and
So
it's
Moss
amazing.
Landing is this hidden gem. Like when you drive
Mm-hmm.
into Moss Landing, it looks like this rundown ghost town.
Right?
I'm not gonna lie. It's out in the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
and with like gravel roads, I think. But once you get there, it is the
Mm-hmm.
best whale watching, I swear, in the world.
Yeah.
Like Moss Landing, the Monterey Bay Canyon starts the minute you leave Moss Landing Harbor. And
Right.
so you are right there where
Mm-hmm.
all of the action is happening.
Yep.
It is where the Monterey boats go to see
Yeah. A
whales. So
lot of
it's
the
like
times.
now, so Blue Ocean is out of Moss Landing
Yep.
Sanctuary. There's, I think, Sea Goddess. There's a few. It's
Yeah.
changing around, but everybody's just starting to realize that, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Moss Landing is like where you need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And I started noticing that, and I'm like, okay. And that's why I actually started. I think that's pretty much how I came about seeing your Instagram.
mhm.
And then you told me about Sanctuary Cruises. And then I started looking that up. And then I was like, oh, wow, they're, right there. And then that's how I started doing whale watching out of Moss Landing. I
Yeah.
still, like, the last 2 times that I went whale watching, I did it with the Discovery, which is where
Mm.
Slater, Eric, and Caitlin used to work. Um, and I went, and their boat's awesome too. Their staff is amazing. And I've met Eric on there, I think, twice already. And so the last 2 times I went out there, but Moss Landing, oh my gosh, I've had the really good experiences out there, especially when not many boats are out there and the water's calm. I think the best picture I've ever gotten from a breaching humpback was out from Moss Landing.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
It
I
was
know.
awesome.
It's like magical.
Uh-huh.
But oh my gosh, so we're already like
I
almost
know.
like 50 minutes in. So I'll just like tell you what I do now and then
Yeah.
I'll just kind of wrap up my how I got to kind of where I am,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. But so yeah, so after I worked in Moss Landing for a year, I again, it was wintertime, it was quieting down and
Yeah.
me and my boyfriend and our dog, our living situation was just like not
Mm-hmm.
the best. We were living in a camper.
Oh
We'd lived in
no.
a camper for a year and it was like the roof was leaky and it was just whatever. It was a lot. So we didn't really know what to do. So we ended up moving back to North Dakota for a
Yeah.
year. The reason we had to stay a year, we were planning on only staying the winter time, which
Mm-hmm.
North Dakota in the wintertime is so awful. But then we had to sign a lease because of our dog and whatever. So we ended up
Oh.
living there for a year. And by the time the end of the year came around and our lease was expiring, we both were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we can't do another winter here. So my
You're like, well, let's get
boyfriend,
out of here.
yeah, my boyfriend Cameron, his mom lives in Long Beach. So we were like, hey, like, let's move to Long Beach. You know,
Yeah.
it's beautiful weather. So while we were still in North Dakota, I just, again, sent out my resumes to some companies in the area. And I ended up getting a job that I didn't even know was available. So
Mm-hmm.
I sent out my application or my resume and my cover letter just asking if they had any positions open.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from my boss, Jessica, saying that they did have a position open, but it was a little bit different than what I applied for. But she just wanted to see
Yeah.
if I would be interested.
Oh, okay.
And the job is basically like a naturalist, like what I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing, but also an education coordinator and like just like an educator. So
Yeah.
I coordinate with schools, like high schools, preschools, whatever, all the schools, and different
Yeah.
youth organizations to try to get big groups of kids out whale watching. And then I go on the
So
boat with
cool.
them and teach them about whales. So
Yeah.
it is an amazing job. I've been here only about a month and a half and I love it. I could totally see myself here as like a long-term career.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it took me like, 10 years to find somewhere that I want to be long
Right.
term, but man, I feel really
That
fortunate
sounds
now.
awesome.
Yeah. So
The
I
fact
want
that
you
you
to
can
come here
reach
so
out
bad
and
to come on
I
our trip.
know the fact that you can like reach out and you have so much opportunity other than just being on the boat, I find that's so cool.
I know.
Like,
And I'm so thankful to Jessica, my boss, for seeing like potential in me for
right.
doing a job like this. It's a little bit different than what I've done,
Yeah.
but she makes me feel valuable. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so thankful for her because she's basically told me, like, I've finally reached a point where I do have experience now, and I do have, you know, things that different organizations want in a
Mm-hmm.
candidate or whatever. And I've always felt kind of like I still had to like beg, you know, to be on a boat. I had to
Yeah,
like
I
I
can
like
see
act
that.
like I'll do anything, you know, just give me boat time. But she said
Mm-hmm.
I've like kind of earned it, and I appreciate that.
Aw, that
It
is so
makes me feel
awesome.
good. Yeah. So I really like this job that I have.
Yeah, that's really cool. I already told Christian, my husband, I was like, so I think we should try to plan a trip to Long Beach soon so I can go see Erica.
Yes! Oh my gosh, please do. Aren't we like 6 hours away or something?
I think so. I think yeah, I don't think I mean, it's like less than a day. I mean, it's not that bad.
Ooh, less than a day. Ugh.
We can just find a pet friendly Airbnb. And I told him,
Yes. I mean,
and we'll
once
just pack up the dogs. And I was like, we'll find an Airbnb. We'll have a nice, relaxing weekend. And then I'll just go whale watching with Erica.
yes, you know what? Oh my gosh, you should say, well, it's really expensive down here, but Huntington Beach is so nice and they have this beautiful dog beach. We could
Aww.
take all our pit bulls to the beach.
Oh my gosh, I'm so down.
I know, me and Kirstie are
That
both
sounds
pit bull
so cute.
mommies.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we talked about so much already.
I know, holy
And
cow,
it
I
was
could
only
talk
on like
for
2 topics.
I know. So, I mean, I don't think we're gonna have a problem with doing the
Nope.
podcast.
No.
But
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
that was fun. I mean, it's
This
been
is
like
fun.
53 minutes, so
Oh my
hopefully if
gosh.
people
Yeah.
care,
Yeah.
they're still
And
listening. We'll see.
yeah, I honestly, this just in episode 1, I love it already. I love the fact that we can be so open with people. And if you guys are interested and wanting to hear more, I mean, we're going to be talking about so much more. And you guys can uh, follow us on our social medias, which obviously once I get everything up and running, I'll post everything down there for everyone to follow us on. And I want to create a new Instagram. So I'm probably just going to
Hmm.
call it the Ocean Lover Podcast.
Yeah,
Um, I like it because it's just so broad, and then I feel like we don't have to like talk about one specific thing each time. And
exactly. I like it too. When I first heard it, I was like, I don't know, is it like, you know,
yeah,
not specific enough? But you know what? It's so simple and I love it. And it's like we
yeah,
are ocean lovers
right,
and
yeah,
people who want to listen to us are probably ocean lovers. So it's just
yeah.
easy. I like it.
Yeah, I felt the same way at first. I'm like, oh, it's kind of simple. I'll try to think of something else, but honestly, I haven't been able to think of anything else. And I also, because you just said that, I like it because even if somebody's not wanting to go in the same career fields as like what we're doing or what,
Hmm.
anything marine biology related, I mean, there's people out there that just love going to the ocean. And then I feel like just having that name, it's like it could call out to those people as well that
Yeah, I
are just
agree.
curious about listening to girls and whoever else wants to come on our podcast talk about all this cool stuff. I mean, I have a really good friend, Renee, and she's not in any way going into the career that I am.
Hmm.
But she's already sent me a list. She's like, okay, I like jellyfish. Can you talk about this? I know nothing about them. She's like, octopus. She's like, what are they like? And so it's like
Oh,
encouraging me because I'm like, you know what? That's a good question. Now I want to look this up. And I feel
yes.
like this podcast is a good way to answer those questions for people that have them for us.
And even challenge ourselves. Like we should,
Yeah,
it could be a challenge to like write an entire podcast about, you know, octopus.
exactly.
I don't know
Yeah.
enough about octopus to talk about them for an hour, but I
Oh,
would
yeah, me
love to
neither.
learn.
Yeah, and that's why I love it. It's like, okay, this is gonna push me to want to learn more. And that's another reason why even my husband was like, I think this is really good because, I am just now getting back to into schooling and into my career and my passion, and what better way than to start trying to educate myself along with educating others, because I don't
Hmm.
want to give everybody the wrong information, obviously.
Hmm.
So I just love it so far. And I'm so glad that you're doing it with me. I'm so, so happy. I mean, who would have thought?
I know.
Who
I'm
would
so
have
excited
thought?
too. So
That's so
yeah, so I
crazy.
guess we should maybe wrap it up,
Let's do it. Yeah.
but yes, thank you so much for
Thank
actually, you know,
you.
putting this in motion. Oh my gosh, like that was really cool of you to do. So
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for texting me a couple months ago randomly. I still remember that point where you texted me. And I'm pretty sure I was laying in bed and I was like, I turned over to my husband and I was like, Christian, Erica just reached out to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like reaching out to me about wanting to do a possible podcast. I was like, I'm not even like as far as where she is. And she's reaching out to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so ecstatic. And then ever since you reached out and you started talking about, you wanting to do the blog, and then we were kind of going from there, because I did try that a little bit too. And I just feel like this podcast, I mean, as much as I tried doing the blog, and who knows, maybe down the road someday I'll do it. I just feel like sitting here talking about it, not having the pressure to making sure it's perfect, is just so much better. Like, I just love it.
I completely agree. I would overthink if I tried to write about it. So it's just free flow. And and I think your ideas are so valuable, and I love to hear your side of things as a student and just, as a ocean lover. So so I was just so impressed by all of these projects that you handle. And so I'm so excited to do this with you.
Me too. Yay! All right, you guys. So if you guys want to hear more, definitely, I think on this app, if you guys want to download the Anchor app, you can listen to it on here, and I'll definitely try to put it on YouTube. I think we're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, which I just put it on there. And I think the Apple podcast, it's still having to be approved, which I expected it to take a while. So that's not a shocker. But I think YouTube would honestly probably be the best. If people don't have all these apps, they can go on there. And we'll try to link our social medias and all of that. And I'll create a new Instagram as well. So that'll be there. Yes. And thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys have made it this far, 58 minutes in, that is incredible.
It's the people that really love us.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. This episode was honestly a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do more.
Me too.
All right. Thank you guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.